New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. New Thought Media Network proudly presents the Science of Mind Saturday Conversations. Learn more about the Science of Mind philosophy, faith, and way of life. Join our team of experts for a weekly deep dive discussion. Come study the science of mind, chapter by chapter, and resources from the Science of Mind archives. Plan to join us every Saturday, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, only on the New Thought Media Network. And good morning, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you here. It's a Saturday morning. It's 9 a.m. and that means it's time for our Saturday morning conversation series. Always a fun time to get together and study the science of mind out of the big book. And today our chapter is Finding the Christ. You can see that going across the banner on the bottom there. Chapter 22, pages 357 through 370. And you may recognize this means we're getting really close to the end of the book, because this is we're only a few chapters away from the end of the book this year. So as the video shows you, we discuss and learn and share in from the book until we're run out of pages. And then we dive into resources from the Science of Mind archives and Library Foundation. So you can look forward to that coming up in the near future. Big thank you to Reverend Dr. Mark Gilbert for his discussion last week. And stay in tune. Next week is the chapter on immortality with Reverend Victoria Bomberry. So that's what's coming up next week. However, today we're looking at Finding the Christ, and this begins on page 357. Now, my book, oh my gosh, I got a lot of notes, a lot of circles and arrows, a whole lot of stuff underlined. Almost the entire page, 364, is underlined. So we got a lot to cover this morning as we go along. Now, as we do, feel free to share your name, shout out, say hello, let us know where you're watching from. If you have questions as we go, please leave those in the comment box, and I will do my best to answer those either as we go or after I've shared on the program. So feel free to interact with us and be a part of what we're doing here. Okay, so, and I want to preface this today by speaking just for a moment that language has changed so much since Ernest Holmes wrote this. And I kind of say something to this effect every time we come here, every time we're together. But there are some words and some concepts that I think mean a whole lot, have a whole different meaning today than they did way back when this was all written and put together and edited and created into a book. So I'm going to do my best to kind of pick and choose some of this. I might change some words around as we go, and I'm going to try not to get lost too much in the semantics of the words, but we do have to discuss some of the nuances of some of these words. So the chapter starts, "Who is Christ? The Son, begotten of the only Father, not the only begotten Son of God." So God and Father we're using synonymously here. Son is the Son begotten of the only Father, of the one, of the oneness. The mystical, and this is the important sentence here, the mystical conception of Christ means the universality of sonship embodied in any individual who recognizes this sonship. Now, sonship is capitalized, which means in Holmes's vernacular, it means it's of the divine. So the mystical conception of Christ means the universality everywhere of sonship embodied in any individual who recognizes this sonship. That means you, me, anyone who recognizes that they are an aspect of the one has within them the Christ consciousness. Now, some don't use it, some don't recognize it, some don't honor it, but it's still there. And as we come to I don't want to say mimic, but as we come to embody our sense of the Christ consciousness, then we find the Christ within us. And at the bottom of the next paragraph, the eternal is forever begetting that which is the realization of its own perfection. It is an eternal process. It is the Son of God, and the Son of God is Christ. So straight off the top, right? We're not talking about Jesus as the only Son. We're not talking about Jesus as the only Christ, as the only begotten. Jesus was not the great exception. He was the great example. And therefore, we can learn from that example, and we can choose to live as that example, as an example as well. In the next paragraph, Christ means the universal idea of oneness. I'm changing the word there. Christ means the universal idea of oneness of which each is a member. That is why we are spoken of as members of that one body. You hear me say it all the time: one body, one presence, one power, one infinite intelligence, and why we are told to have the mind in us, which was also in Christ Jesus. Each partakes of the Christ nature to the degree that the Christ is revealed through them, and to that degree we become the Christ. We should turn to that living presence within, which is the Father in heaven, recognize that Father in heaven as the one and only power in the universe, unify with it, declare our word to be the presence, power, and activity of the one, and we should speak the word with belief in this power, because the law is the servant of the Spirit. Now, here's that fun word, the law. The law, the creative law, the law of creation, the universal law, is the servant of our spirit. When we speak the word, the law has no choice. The law can't say, yeah, well, but you didn't do the dishes this morning, or you forgot to make your bed, or, it's Saturday and I don't feel like working today. The law, because it is law, must take your word and manifest and demonstrate. And that's what we mean by because the law is the servant of the Spirit. So now we're still on page 358 near the top. If we could stand aside and let this one perfect life flow through us, we could not help healing people. This is the work. Now, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing, they're all different degrees, but they're all still healing. And it all happens when we stand aside, take our ego, our humanness, and stand aside to let the one perfect life flow through us. This is the highest form of healing. We have gone through many abstract processes of reasoning and found out that the law is and how it works. Now, we can forget all about the law and know there is nothing but the word. The law will be working automatically. So, throughout this chapter, what I believe we're moving towards is Holmes teaching us that we have to let go of being overly concerned with the teaching, with how the law works, and trust that the law works. To let go of any question about if the law will work, and to truly have faith and deep faith in our word, because our word is the Spirit and the law is the servant of the Spirit. You with me? Shout it out in the chat box if you're with me. We must forget everything else and let our word be spoken with a deep inner realization of love, beauty, peace, poise, power, and of the great presence of life at the point of our own consciousness. Is this not what Jesus did? Of all the accounts, of all the videos, of all the movies, of all the readings, if I get past how do I want to say it, the Christian nationalism, that's how I want to say it. If we get beyond the misuse of those teachings, we come to realize that this is what Jesus was doing. Speak in the word. Pick up your bed and walk. Be healed. There was a point in the supreme moment of realization where the individual merges with the universe, but not to the loss of their individuality, but where in no sense of where there is a sense so there's a point in the supreme moment of realization where the individual merges with the universe. A sense of the oneness of all life so enters our being that there is no sense of otherness. It is here that the mentality performed It is here that the mentality performs seeming miracles, because there is nothing to hinder the whole from coming through. So when we get to that point of really feeling and really embodying, this is my word of the decade, folks, when we embody that sense of knowing that there is no other, that this is all, that you are me and I am you and we are we and it's all one, then at that point, we think we're performing miracles, but it isn't about the performance. What it is that we are a clean and clear conduit to allow the oneness to reveal itself as the wholeness of life. I'm in the middle of page 358 here. We can only do this by providing the mental equivalent of life, by dwelling and meditating upon the immensity of life, and this is a capital L life, so divine life. It is here that the mentality performs seeming miracles, because there is nothing to hinder the whole from coming through. We can do this only by providing the mental equivalent of life, by dwelling and meditating upon the immensity of life and the fact that as vast, as immense, as limitless as it is, the whole of it is brought to the point of our own consciousness. It's a seeming miracle, because it is truly our nature. But we have to be willing to get into it, to get into the spirit of it. Good morning, Linda. Good to see that you're with us. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing here. We can only do this by providing the mental equivalent of divine life. So what is that mental equivalent? That's where we sit and we come to recognize, and we do our prayer work and we do our meditation work, or we do visioning. We sit in the presence of the one and recognize that that oneness is me, is us, is each of us. Shouting out to Shay Bird as well. Good morning, Shay. Glad you're with us. Thanks for tuning in. I know you both love being here on Saturday mornings. but it is brought to the point of our own consciousness. So this can happen spontaneously, but it's really through our own awareness and our own consciousness that we're most able to demonstrate this truth. Hey, and Reverend Lana, I keep wanting to make it an O. I apologize, Lana. Reverend Lana, all the way from Salt Lake City in the Wasatch Center Spiritual Center. Good to see you, dear one. Thanks for being with us. Okay, so let's drop down to the bottom of page 358. We cannot come unto the Father or the One or God or Buddha or Brahma or Yahweh or Vishnu or Kuan Yin or Source Energy or whatever word title you want to give it. We cannot come unto the One which art in heaven. Now remember, heaven is a state of consciousness. So we cannot come unto the Father which are in a state of consciousness except through our own nature. That's what I was just saying, right? It is our nature to be a conduit of the revelation. Right here, through our own nature, is the gateway and the path which leads to illumination. I'm going to the top of 359 now. Right here, through our own nature, is the gateway and the path which leads to illumination, to realization, to inspiration, to the intuitive perception of everything. Right here, in this moment, right now, in this very next breath, we are the gateway that leads us to, well, intuition. And that's where Holmes takes us next. He says the highest faculty in the human is intuition. And it comes to a point sometimes where, with no process of reasoning at all, we just instantly know. This is part of that definition of mystic as well. To know the truth without a direct human experience. To just know, and we say it, it's in our language. How do you know that's true? I just know it is. I just know that I know. I know that I know that I know. And somewhere along the line, maybe for you, I know this is true for me, I was brought up in the culture or consciousness that said women had a greater access to intuition. It's a woman's intuition. And it was implied by that, well, men, we didn't. But that's not true. Remember, Holmes wrote in the Declaration of Principles that anyone may be a revealer of truth that lives in close contact with the indwelling spirit. Well, intuition is how we come to just sort of know what the spirit wants, or what the spirit has in store, or what we're creating, or what we're here meant to be. Christ, back to our text, Christ is the embodiment of divine sonship, or again, humanness. Christ is the embodiment of divine one, which has come with varying degree of power to all people in all ages and to every person in some degree. Christ is a universal presence, which means, again, it cannot be withheld from any one of us. It cannot be absent in your life. Now, you can deny it. You can pretend that you don't understand this. You can act as if it's not the truth. But the truth is that you are a divine emanation of God's life. You have within you the Christ consciousness. And I'm encouraging you, and I believe all of New Thought is encouraging you to embrace, embody, and express that Christ consciousness. Get it? Embrace it. Embrace it. It's true. Even if others may say it's not, even if you've had a hard time believing that in the past, embrace that you are the Christ made manifest. And then embody that. Act like it. Speak like it. Treat your dog like it. Treat the people out in the world like it. like you are the Christ. Embrace, embody, express. Know that it's true. Feel it in the body temple, and then live that. Third paragraph, page 359. We do believe that in the unique personage of Jesus, the Christ, we do believe that in the unique personage of Jesus, the Christ was more fully orbed than in any one of whom we have record. Maybe the Buddha, maybe Muhammad. Remember, this was written by Holmes coming from the Christian traditions, so he had did a lot more study around Jesus than he did Muhammad. We do believe that in the unique personage of Jesus, this Christ consciousness was more fully orbed than in any one of whom we have record. We do believe that in the person of Jesus, more of God was manifest. Manifest, not potential. Remember, the God figure, the Christ consciousness, was potential in everyone. Those that lived during Jesus's time, those that lived before Jesus's time, and those that have lived after Jesus's time. Jesus just happened to be the great example of how to actually embody and live this and express this. We do believe that in the person of Jesus was more of God than was manifest. We also believe that Christ comes alike to each and all. There is no one particular human predestined to become the Christ. We must understand the Christ is not a person, but it is a principle. It was impossible for Jesus not to have become the Christ as the human gave way to the divine. Are we willing to let our human give way to the divine and yet still be fully human? That's the challenge now. The answer is yes, by the way. Or I believe it's yes for you. I don't think you'd be here if it wasn't. But Jesus, as the human gave way to the divine, as the man gave way to God, as the flesh gave way to spirit, as the will of division gave way to the will of unity, are we willing to let go of the sense of separation, even between red and blue? Are we willing to let go of the sense of separation, even between man and woman? Are we willing to let go of the sense of separation so that we are able to come to a willingness of unity? Jesus, the man, became a living embodiment of the Christ. And I believe we are all doing that as well. And that's not just those of us in this room. That's not just those of us that are paying attention to the New Thought movement. That's everyone. Some, however, are not willing. Some, however, want to hold on to the division. Some want to hold on to the flesh. Some want to hold on to the sense of the human over the divine. And again, if you're in this room, I believe that you're willing to let go of that and be the divine and be the spirit, be unity, be the oneness. We are each becoming a living embodiment of Christ. So put that name, Lana, the Christ, Linda, the Christ, Shay, the Christ. Anyone else out there watching? It's still a little tricky to do that in public. But do it at home. Do it. Think of yourself as an embodiment of Christ consciousness. Ask yourself, and that's why that that phrase, what would Jesus do? That's a good phrase. Ask ourselves, what would the Christ consciousness do in this moment? When faced with a challenge, when faced with someone's accusations of you, when faced with any concern whatsoever, when faced with a dichotomy of a sense of separation, what would the Christ within me do here in this moment? At the bottom of the paragraph, Holmes writes, as the human gives way to the divine in all people, they become the Christ. And I believe, now this is just my belief, because when you flip that page, what you find yourself is with one of Holmes's poems. And I believe that that's what he's setting us up for there, that the poetry of this chapter demonstrates this shift, because Holmes wrote a lot of poetry, but not a lot of it appears in the basic text of the Science of Mind. Some of it appears in the later chapter, in the ancillary chapters, the later writings. But this is one of those few places, and if you've ever dove into The Voice Celestial, Holmes and his brother Fenwick, which is an epic poem, I believe this is a demonstration of where Holmes himself is saying, here's how, when we slip away from the divine, from the human, when we let go of the human, the divine comes to reveal itself. The mystic Christ comes from the bosom of the unseen Father, proclaiming the love of God through their own love of humanity. And I'm going to read the poem for you. Asleep in the heart of cosmic love, unborn, universal, potential, the Christ child lay, and the great mother's soul, brooding over her unborn child, conceived it in the stillness of her universal nature, imparting it to her own being. Born into time and experienced, unnoticed, unseen, yet alive and aware, the Christ child incarnated in human form, taking the likeness of men and women, yet giving no sign of its presence, waiting with utmost patience and love, the revelation that should disclose itself and proclaim the reign of peace. Many ages passed and vanished in the long yesterdays of time, and still the Christ child waited. Nations appeared and disappeared. Toil, famine, pestilence, and want. Hunger, cold, heat, and thirst. War, hatred, blood, and ruin. And still the seed of perfection unrevealed. But the universal wholeness cannot forever be subjected, nor cosmic love be kept from human form. That which was given must be revealed. That which was given must be revealed. The seed of perfection must burst. The shoots of heavenly planting must break the cords that bind, fanning the human into a blaze divine. And so the long appointed day arrived. The voice from out of the stillness spoke, "This is my beloved Son. Let the earth be still in his presence. Let the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and all living creatures be still. Let the hosts of heaven sing praises, and let deep cry unto deep." Then spoke the child, "I am come to bring peace. I am the child of joy, and to all whom will I give life. I am formed in happiness. I am come from the eternal stillness, Quietness and confidence are mine. In the heart of the Father, I have lived forever. O nations and all people, look unto me and be saved. Behold my face shining as the sun, and my feet shod with righteousness. In my left hand are riches and honor, and in my right peace forevermore. All that I am, all that I have, I give. Holmes breaks with the tradition of this book to give us a living demonstration that I believe lasts the ages of how we teach and how we can learn and how we can come to recognize this truth from a different form of writing, from poetry rather than the educational or the academic prose. He slips back at the bottom of 361 into a more traditional reading. Christ, the idea of universal oneship, the entire creation, both visible and invisible, there is one of all. This one conceived itself, gives birth to all the divine ideas. The sum total of all these ideas constitutes the mystic Christ. That means you, that means me, that means everyone around us is a part, a vital part of this mystic Christ nature. Jesus understood his own nature. He knew that as the human embodies the divine, it manifests this Christ nature. Jesus located God and the kingdom of heaven within himself. He had plunged beneath the material surface of creation and found its spiritual cause. This cause he called God or the Father. Throughout his teachings and throughout the New Thought movement, we have a lot of names for God. And one of the things that I always want us to remember, because God, the word, some argue we should let go of the word completely because it's too personified. Makes us think of a person, an old white guy with a flowing beard on a cloud somewhere. But when we remember that God is the first cause, it is that power, presence, and intelligence. It is that form of energy. It is that life force that is the first cause. It is the first thing to cause something. It is the vibration of cause. And in one passage, and I forget where it is offhand, Holmes refers to God as that self-existent cause that is forever taking on form and abandoning that form in order to take on new form. We are that. A little bit further down on 362, the world is looking for another great teacher, one who will again show it the way. Never before was there such an inquiry into the hidden meaning of things, never such a searching after God in reality. It seems as though all people are engaged in this search and that no one can be satisfied until they have made the great discovery for themselves. But to how few has come the real truth. The realization that God is indwelling in the soul and spirit of humanity. And yet this realization is what gave Jesus his wonderful power. This and a correct knowledge of spiritual law in the mental world. So again and again and again, Holmes is reminding us, if we have the eyes to see, that we are the divine made manifest. The world is searching for another great teacher, and that teacher is I, is you, is we. It is this philosophy of new thought. We are the great teacher. So continuing on 362, and We've got a handful of pages here and only a handful of minutes, so we got to get moving. God or spirit is supreme, infinite, limitless personality, and we should think of the divine being as such, as completely responsive to everything that we do, not just the good things, everything we do. There should come to us a sense of communion, a spontaneous sense of an irresistible union. And if we had this, we would demonstrate instantaneously. So if there's something we're not demonstrating instantaneously, that just means we got a little more work to do. Let's get into it. We have the potentiality. Now we have to commit to the demonstrations. All that we are is God, yet God is more than all we are. There is always more to learn. There is always a greater connection to embrace. There is always a greater demonstration to be made. On 363, the realization that God is personal to all who are receptive to the divine influx enables one to communicate with the spirit, receiving a direct answer. This happens in visioning every time we sit down. A little bit farther down. This Jesus discovered and taught that whatever is true of man, of the human, of the reality of its nature, is the divine presence within. Coupled with dynamic realization that this enlightened concept of deity, of placing God at the center of our own being, and this is the greatest gift New Thought has given the world, is that we have an indwelling spirit. The realization becomes of an absolute law obeying our will. And when this will was in harmony with the spirit of truth, that's a big thought there, and he italicizes that our will has to be in harmony with the spirit of truth. Is greed the spirit of truth? No. Is harm the spirit of truth? No. Is racism the spirit of truth? No. Is Christian nationalism, white power? No. Oneness, unity, wholeness, that is the spirit of truth. Christ is not limited to any person, nor does Christ appear in only one age. Christ is as eternal as God. Christ is God's idea of himself, of itself. Christ is God's own self-knowingness. We are the divine's self-knowingness when we embody, embrace, and express, embrace, embody, and express the Christ nature within. For Christ to be found in us is to put off the old with all our mistakes and doubts and put on the new, who is always certain that we are beloved of the one. The Christ always comes with power and might, awakened by the still small voice of truth. Want to read that again? The Christ always comes with power and might, awakened by the still small voice of truth. That is you. Awakened with power and might. Now, the rest of page 364, the invisible whole, and almost all of 365 is one huge piece, and I've got the whole thing underlined. So a few excerpts. The thing that we look with is the thing that we have been looking for. Consciousness we look with is the thing we have been looking for. We have stopped looking for the law. We have found it. In the universe, we call it universal subjectivity or soul. In our own experience, we call it the subjective state of our thought, which is our individual use of universal law. We have found the law and we have demonstrated it, period. We find that both the law and the spirit are limitless. Nothing we can't imagine and nothing the law can't accomplish. What is it we need for greater freedom? Nothing but a greater realization of what we already know. What do we need for greater freedom? Nothing but a greater realization of what we already know. And here is June, and here we are, the weekend of Juneteenth. What a greater demonstration for a reminder, a reflection for Juneteenth than that. The slaves of Galveston, Texas were already free legally, but they did not have that realization. And when that realization reached them, they had greater freedom than they ever knew. We should never hesitate to say that we know the truth, because we do. The realization of the unity of God and human is the truth. We simply need a greater realization of this. We need to remind ourselves of this. We need to remind our friends of this. That's why we go to church on Sunday, right? Have a greater reminder of this. Only by penetrating deeper and yet deeper into our own divine nature, pushing further and further back into the infinite, will we really get it. Where are we to do this? There is no place except within that we can do it. So you don't need to go to church. Sorry, Lana. You don't need to be a part of a spiritual community. I recommend it highly because it is fun and it expedites the process. It speeds up the process when we have others by which we can share these ideas and remind each other of the truth. And yet you can do it wherever you are, because there is no place to do this except within ourselves. Who is to do it for us? No one can do it for us. We do this. We come to this realization for ourselves. Others can treat, provide prayer. They can set the law in motion for us and help us to become prosperous. This is both good and helpful, but the evolution of the individual, the unfoldment of personality, the enlightenment of the soul, the illumination of the spirit can only come to the degree that the individual pursues to let life operate through them. Only about letting the divine operate through us. Let the mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. 365. The answer to every question is within, because within is spirit. And spirit is the indivisible whole. It's everything. So the answer to every question is as near as your very next breath. Again, this is how visioning works. The solution to every problem is within. The healing of all disease is within. The forgiveness of all sin is within. The raising of the dead is within. Heaven is within. This is why Jesus prayed to this indwelling I am and said, Our Father which art in heaven. And again, he said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Each of us represents the whole. You are a perfect representation of the one power, the one presence, the one infinite intelligence that we call God, or Buddha, or Brahma, or Yahweh, or Vishnu, or Kuan Yin, or Source Energy, or Divine. I have a friend that calls it George. That's what she likes. She likes to call it George. Just don't call me late to dinner. That's a joke. We have meditated upon the vastness of the universe as law, and we have said God is law, and there is a divine principle, which is God. In the new order of thought, we are likely to fall into as great an error as in the old thought, unless we go much deeper than thinking of God as merely a principle. God is more than law or principle. God is the infinite spirit, the limitless conscious life of the universe, the one infinite person within whom all people live, the one indivisible whole. We must not look afar to see the Christ, for the Christ is ever near at hand. Christ is always within us. To the individual, there can never be any power, truth, or life unless they are able to realize or recognize it. Through the rest of this, Holmes isn't so much teaching as he's reminding. And that's why this book is so big. He's constantly reminding us again and again and again. We must learn, this is on 367, we must learn to listen for this voice, call it conscience, intuition, or what we will, it is there. No one need go unguided through life, for all are divine at the center and all are images of the Most High. Listen to the intuition. As the external Jesus gave way to the divine, the human took on the Christ spirit and became the voice of God to humanity. You can do that. You can become the voice of God to humanity when we let go of the external and give way to the divine. We've heard that already this morning. It would be a grave mistake to suppose that we are different from others. Jesus was a man who knew himself and his direct relationship to the whole. This was the secret of his success. Now you know that secret. To think of Jesus as being different from other men is to misunderstand his mission and purpose in life. He was a way shower and proved his way to be a correct one. His method was direct, dynamic, and powerful, yet extremely easy and simple to comprehend. He believed in God in himself as power and reality. Believing in God within, he was compelled to believe in himself. Oh, do we believe in ourselves, people? The Christ Spirit comes to all alike, proclaiming itself as the one of God, even unto the humble in spirit, proud of his divinity, yet humbled before the greatness of the whole. The Christ triumphs over death and the grave, breaking through the tomb of human limitation into the dawn of eternal expansion. The Christ rises from the ashes of human hopes, pointing the way to a greater realization of life. The Christ is always triumphant, is ever a victor, is never defeated, needs no champion. The Christ places its hand on the outstretched hand of the universe and walks unafraid through life. Wow. We are never left, the final paragraph of this chapter, we are never left without a witness of the eternal. And in our greatest moments, in those flash-like visions of mystic grandeur, we know that we are made of eternal stuff, fashioned after a divine pattern. Folks, finding the Christ, well, it's as easy as closing our eyes and turning within. In our meditations, in our prayers, in our visioning, in any of our spiritual practices, we come to that recognition that the Christ is within, and it is our work to embody that and to express that. Embrace, embody, and express. And what I know of this thing called life is that when we do that, well, to borrow some words by Marianne Williamson, we give others permission to do the same. As we step forward as an embodiment of the Christ nature, we amplify the Christ consciousness, and that consciousness ripples out across the world into hearts and minds we may never know. That's how we create a world that works for all. We start with ourselves. We bring that awareness into the organizations, the communities, the groups that we're a part of, the places where we work, the places where we shop, the soccer club that we take our kids to, whatever it may be, and be the Christ consciousness in the world. That's what changes the world. And that's what creates a world that works for all. I thank you for being with me this morning. I thank you for being a part of what we're doing here on the New Thought Media Network. If you're in a position to do so, we invite you to please consider making a donation over on our website, www.ntmedia.org. Click on the donate button or do a /donate after the ORG. Either way, if you're in a place to make a donation to this ministry, please do so. Reverend Victoria Bomberry will be with us next week on the next chapter, chapter 23, Immortality. It's another great, deep chapter. Join us as we continue to explore the science of mind and make it real. Make it real in our lives. Make it something we can use. Make it something that we do use every day. I'm Dr. Robert. I'm going to get out of here for now. Until next time, I want you to know that you're loved. We all love you around here. Can't wait to be with you again. But until then, I want to wish you peace and absolute richest blessings. Bye now.